Once she settled into the passenger seat, I offered her the bottled water I kept wedged between the seats. She accepted it with shaking hands and took a long drink, like she hadn't had anything in hours. I asked where she was headed, and after a brief pause, she said she needed to get to Omaha. That was convenient enough, since I was already bound that direction. Still, something about the way she spoke quiet, hesitant, like every word took effort, set my nerves on edge. As we pulled back onto the interstate, she stared straight ahead, watching the road unwind under my headlights. I tried to make small talk, asking her what she'd been doing out there so late, dressed like that, miles from the nearest town. She hesitated again before telling me she'd gotten into a fight with her boyfriend. According to her, things had turned ugly and she ran. She didn't have a phone anymore, and she didn't know where else to go. Her explanation sounded rehearsed, like she'd repeated it before, but the fear in her eyes seemed real enough. The miles passed quietly. The CB crackled occasionally with distant chatter, but nothing close enough to join in on. At some point, I noticed she kept glancing at the door handle, her fingers brushing it nervously, as if she was debating something. I asked her if she was okay, and she forced a weak smile, telling me she was just tired. About 20 minutes later, she suddenly asked if I could stop at the next rest area. Her voice was urgent now, strained. I didn't argue. I eased the rig into the lot and parked near the building, leaving the engine running. She didn't move right away, just sat there staring at the dashboard. Then she whispered, "He's going to find me." I asked who she meant, but she didn't answer. She grabbed her backpack, thanked me again in a rush, and jumped down from the cab before I could say anything else. I watched her walk toward the restrooms, her white dress glowing under the harsh fluorescent lights. Something felt off, wrong in a way I couldn't quite explain. I sat there for a moment, debating whether I should follow her inside or just pull back onto the road. Eventually, I convinced myself that she was safe enough now. There were other cars round, other people. I released the brakes and rolled back onto the highway. Less than 5 minutes later, my CB radio erupted with static. A frantic voice came through, asking if anyone had seen a girl in a white dress walking along 80. The man sounded desperate, angry, and out of breath. My stomach dropped. I keyed the mic and asked him to repeat himself. He said she'd stolen his truck, his money, and taken off on foot after wrecking things inside his cab. He claimed she was dangerous and mentally unstable. I didn't respond. My hands tightened on the steering wheel as I replayed every second of our interaction in my head. The bruises, the mascara, the rehearsed story. Suddenly, none of it felt accidental. I drove the rest of the night in silence, checking my mirrors far more often than necessary. To this day, I don't know who she really was or what would have happened if I hadn't stopped. I tell myself I did the right thing, that I helped someone who needed it. But every time I pass that stretch of highway outside Lincoln, I still half expect to see a pale figure standing on the shoulder, thumb out, waiting for the next driver to slow down. Several years after that incident, I was running a long overnight haul through the southern stretch of Arizona, a route I'd driven more times than I could count. The desert at night has a way of feeling endless, like the road just keeps unfolding forever with no real destination. It was late, somewhere around 3 in the morning, and the heat from the day still clung to the air even with the windows cracked. My headlights cut to pale tunnels through the darkness, and everything beyond them felt empty and watching. I hadn't seen another vehicle in nearly half an hour when I noticed headlights coming up fast. Behind me, they stayed glued to my trailer, uncomfortably close, refusing to pass. At first, I assumed it was just another impatient driver, maybe someone half asleep and drifting. I tapped my brakes lightly, hoping they'd get the message and back off. They didn't. Instead, they edged even closer, so near I couldn't see their headlights anymore. That's when my CB radio crackled to life. A male voice came through, low and strained, asking if I could slow down. The tone didn't sit right with me. There was something off about it. Like the man was forcing calm, he didn't actually feel. I asked who he was and why he needed me to slow down. He hesitated before saying his truck was overheating, and he didn't want to be alone out there if it died. He asked if we could pull over together at the next turnout. Every instinct I had told me not to do it. Truckers help each other, sure, but we also learned when to trust that little voice in the back of our heads. I told him I'd radio ahead to Highway Patrol for assistance. The silence that followed was immediate and heavy. A few seconds later, the headlights behind me suddenly veered into the oncoming lane and blasted past, engine screaming as the truck passed. I caught a glimpse of the cab. The interior light was on, and I could swear there was more than one person inside, faces turned toward me, staring. The truck disappeared into the darkness ahead, and just like that, the road was empty again. I didn't sleep well the next day. That image stuck with me, the way those faces had been watching. Not angry, not scared, just intensely focused. A few days later, I heard over the CB that another driver had gone missing along that same stretch of highway. His rig was found abandoned, doors open, no sign of a struggle, no driver anywhere. I never told anyone about the headlights or the voice on the radio. Out there, stories spread fast, and fear spreads even faster. But ever since that night, I never stopped for anyone on empty desert roads after midnight. Some people say trucking is lonely. I say it's dangerous in ways you can't always see coming. That missing driver stayed in the back of my mind longer than I cared to admit. In this line of work, you hear about accidents and disappearances often enough that you learn to compartmentalize them, shove them into a mental box, and keep rolling. But this one felt different. I'd been there. I'd heard that voice. I'd seen those headlights riding my trailer like a shadow that refused to let go. A few weeks later, I found myself parked at a rundown truck stop just outside Flagstaff, killing time while my logbook reset. The place was quiet in that uneasy, late-night way, with only a handful of rigs scattered across the lot. I was sipping burnt coffee when the CB chatter started up again, slow and lazy at first, then turning sharp. Someone asked if anyone remembered the driver who'd vanished south of Winslow. Another voice chimed in, claiming they'd seen a suspicious rig matching the description just the night before. I kept my mouth shut and listened. One older driver mentioned rumors of a crew running that stretch of highway, baiting drivers into pulling over by pretending to need help. He said trucks don't just disappear on their own, and men don't just walk away from perfectly good rigs. According to him, if you pulled over in the wrong place at the wrong time, you never pulled out again. Nobody laughed. Nobody called him crazy. Later that night, I stepped out of my cab to grab a shower. As I crossed the lot, I noticed a dark tractor parked near the edge, its lights off, engine cold. Something about it felt familiar. The shape of the hood, the way the mirrors angled outward. When I passed closer, my stomach tightened. The company logo on the door matched the one described in the CB conversation earlier. The cab was empty. Curtains half drawn. No driver in sight. I stood there longer than I should have, telling myself I was imagining things, letting old stories mess with my head. Then I heard movement inside, soft, deliberate shifting, like someone repositioning their weight. I didn't knock. I didn't announce myself. I turned round and walked back to my truck, forcing myself not to look over my shoulder. I pulled out before dawn, leaving that truck stop behind without a second glance. As the sun crept up over the desert, painting the sky in pale orange and red. I tried to convince myself that exhaustion had gotten the better of me, but deep down, I knew that wasn't true. Some stretches of road don't just test your driving skills. They test your instincts, your judgment, and your willingness to mind your own business. After all these years, I've learned one thing for certain. If something feels wrong out there, it probably is. And sometimes, the smartest move a trucker can make is to keep the wheels turning and never stop to find out why.